Vamos Epicureans. This is Sunday, October 26, 2025. You are tuned into the Marvel Epic Collection podcast, where we will read, rate, and review the Marvel Epic Collection trade paperbacks. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr Shop. How's it going, Nick?
I am doing well, except I've lost the cursor on my screen. There we go. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to get back into doing a full-on epic instead of the one-shots that we have been doing for the, let's see, Marvel Epic Podcast Reading Club with the X-Men stuff. I mean, those have been fun, but boy, it's a lot to try to do a video every day.
Yeah, it's the videos themselves come out quickly. It's just finding the time and kind of keeping up with the reading and ahead with the reading, and then joining the discussion about the thing that you read and posted a video about a couple days ago. It's a lot of coordination there.
Yeah. Hopefully we're getting to a spot where we'll be able to get a little more regular with that, and things will get a bit easier, but I don't know. We'll see. How are you doing, Stojr?
Yeah, not too bad. Halloween's coming up here in the U.S., so we're kids are getting excited and doing all sorts of things to be ready for that. A lot of sales. I know when we get into some of the things that we're getting, I think this has been maybe the month over the last month that I've gotten the most books this year, and probably will die down after that. How about yourself?
Yeah, not so bad. Had a nice weekend off last weekend. That's why we didn't do this last weekend. My wife and I decided to go on a little mini vacation, and already got those X-Men videos recorded from a hotel room. I didn't want to ask my wife to sit through an hour of doing this. So speaking of books, I had the book Tsunami last time we recorded, so tell me what you got, Stojr.
All right. So, in stock trades, the latest things that I've gotten were the Crisis on Infinite Earths and DC Epic Collection. What's great about these DC Epics, if you get them from in stock trades in the US, they're only $18 plus shipping the first week that they're released. I think there's an extra discount.
Oh, nice.
So I was holding off on Generation X Volume 5, but I have the other volumes, so I kind of combined them together to get free shipping. So that catches me up with Generation X. And it's got some consistent art in that issue, which I didn't appreciate as much in the 90s or early 2000s. Was this 90s? Early 2000s? Yep, to 2000.
I think I bowed out after the first 10 issues of Generation X when I was a kid.
Yeah, I have most of the run in single issues, but it's things that I got cheap and I never really went back and read them because I always had all these gaps, and I was like, well, when I get them all, I'll read them through. Target has a couple of buy two, get one 50% off or get one free sale. But last week there was a buy one, get one 50% off, and I had Target cash and there was other things. So I picked up the GLA, the Grant Morrison run, thick trade, volume 1 and volume 2. And I got these for about $20 each, or nice. I think it was $20 each. Yeah. So basically buy one, get one free when all's said and done. Before that, though, when Amazon was running its Amazon Prime days early in October, and Target was doing its buy two, get one free sale, I picked up the Spider-Man McFarlane Complete Collection, which is not labeled as an epic and does skip one issue, but basically covers issues 1 through 16 with skipping issue 15. And that was the one with the yellow beast cover, if anybody remembers that from the 90s. The other two books that I purchased, though, is I decided to go with these thick trades for the Batman by Tom King. This has some amazing art in it by, I guess it's Mikel Janin, and I think Clayton Mann does a bunch of it too, although not seeing his name on the cover here. So I got volumes 1 and volume 2 of that. I believe that there's going to be 4 volumes of that, take you about up to Batman issue 84, 85 or something like that. This is the run where Bane comes back and is a major villain, and I think spoilers, kills Alfred, and Alfred's been basically dead since then in the Batman comics. And I have the Grant Morrison and Scott Snyder runs of Batman in Omni collection. So this kind of continues the Batman on my shelf, except I switched over to thick trades for this.
Mm.
But I also had a coupon on Amazon for this, which is Batman by James Tywin the fourth, which is the immediately after Tom King's run. So this one's still in plastic because I think I'm going to hand that one to my wife for me to get for Christmas, as opposed to just another book unread opened on the shelf. And then I was at Ollie's, and I figured, well, if I'm getting a Batman Tom King run, I should finish with his Black Label Batman Catwoman book, because if you're not familiar with Batman Tom King, the big thing in that run is his relationship with Catwoman. They get engaged, they almost get married, and then in this book, this DC Black Label, it's basically the future with them married and what happens to Bruce and things like that. Excellent run there. And then I have some eBay purchases. I've never read Arkham Asylum. I know that for some people that's sacrilege. So I picked that up in this DC Compact edition for like less than $5 on eBay. As part of that sale, I also got the DC Finest Justice League. So continue with my Justice League runs of Justice League International and the other two books that I showed. And as well as the return book that I have. Apparently, I'm now collecting the end-to-end Justice League, which I didn't think I was going to do. Although this is very 60s, so I'm not sure if this is just me experimenting in that era or if I'm going to bow out and stick with the modern stuff. But as part of that eBay sale where I got a bunch of this stuff cheap and combined shipping, I picked up the Carnage Epic that I was missing. This double dips with a lot of things that I have, so this is probably something that I would just hold on to and sell. There's only about 2 or 3, I think, unique stories or issues in here. I forget the exact amount. This is mostly double dipping with the Clone Saga or some Venom epics. But if I ever want to sell some of the Carnage epics, I'll have the set, so to speak. Also got a Captain America epic. This is my first one. This is Streets of Poison. It looks like most of this is drawn by Ron Lim, with some consistent backup stories by Mark Bagley, which I didn't even know. And Mark Bagley is one of my favorite artists. So one of these days I'll dive into that, and looking forward to reading through that. I have the Excalibur Visionaries for Warren Ellis, which fills the gap on my shelf here for Excalibur. And basically gives me a complete run of Excalibur with the exception of like 6 issues. There's about 6 issues right before that, and the last Epic collection that was the Epic collection that's released before that.
I saw, real quick, I see
go ahead.
Phil just entered the chat, and he's trying to get us to say the phrase that we were challenged by Curtis not to say. So I see you, Phil.
I'm going to save it. I don't think I'm going to win that challenge, but I'm going to save it for the right time. X-Men Wounded Wolf. This nice. One was kind of pre-ordered, ready to go. That brings me, with the exception of the Life Death, which I think comes out in January or sometime in 26. This would bring me all the way up through Mutant Massacre for all of the X-Men issues. And then last but not least, Superman, the Triangle Era, Volume 2. This brings Superman up to the Death of Superman. This is a giant omnibus. They do have the fold-out page of the Death of Superman in this, which is really cool. This fills me in for the Superman books. I'm going to actually put this back on the shelf. So you got the Man of Steel by John Byrne, Superman the Exile right after that. There's a gap here with an Omni that will be released in June of 2026. And then the Triangle Era. So basically from Crisis on Infinite Earths all the way to the Death of Superman collected in some sort of hardcover format. And that's a lot.
That is.
And I think I'm going to need to take a break with buying things after that.
No, you definitely had the tsunami of books this week. I'm relatively little this time. In fact, I didn't think I was going to have anything to share other than my new mug. Got some nice 70s art there. Love that Black Widow. God, this is in the first. This particular image is in the first Black Widow epic, but I can't remember the artist. So I'm ashamed. But anyway, some nice 70s Avengers stuff there. Got a new hat, which I've been wearing for the X-Men episodes. And let's see, I did happen to get 2 books show up in the mail yesterday. I am a pure Marvel zombie, so getting DC stuff is not usually my jam, but with the DC's finest being similar to the Epics, I wanted to read Batman. I've enjoyed Batman. It's interesting you were talking about Bane coming back as a main villain. I think the original time Bane came out and he broke Batman's back, that was the first run that I was really reading of Batman when I was a kid. And then I dropped off, and then I got back in for the Hush storyline. I somehow managed to hit that just right, and then dropped off again just because of time and money and so forth. But anyway, Stojr, you and I had been talking about the Teen Titans finest collection. And I got to thinking, you know what, I might as well grab that. George Perez, gorgeous art in here. So might as well give it a shot, give it a try. And In-Stock Trades was out, so that, I had the FOMO kick in. It's like, uh-oh, if I can't get it there, where am I going to get it? So I did an Amazon order with that guy. And again, since I'm a Marvel zombie, dropped something, I decided to grab one of these volumes of The Lost Marvels. This is Dominique Fortune, Monarch, Starstalker, Phantom Eagle, basically the Howard Chaykin volume, which, of course, I just got to meet Howard Chaykin a couple weeks ago, and I'm ashamed I didn't have this or could talk about this. I'm shocked at how big this is. I didn't realize how big it is. You compare it to
it's like an artist or gallery edition or something like that. Yeah. It's similar. I have the One More Day epic, and by the way, Phil wants to see that Black Widow on your mug again.
Oh, sure.
But that's a pretty big. The Hulk looks like it's Sal, but I don't know that's Sal for everybody.
No, I don't think so. They've definitely taken these from different comics. I don't know what, but I know I've seen that Black Widow one before when I read the Black Widow epics. Anyway, kind of excited about this. I guess if they're the Lost Marvels, the chances of these ending up in epics is slim to nil, so I might start picking these up too. The art has not been restored, so it kind of has some of the gritty newspaper. My camera's not going to catch that well. The dot matrix printing, maybe that's not the right word, but it does give you kind of a nostalgic feel.
Yeah, no, that's some good stuff there. And there is one book I neglected to mention because I don't actually physically have it, which is I did get the Dawn of X first Krakoa Omni, but it came in damaged, and I didn't actually order it from Amazon, so I just shipped that back to the online retailer. I don't want to say their name because they're doing the return, so far so good, but yeah. It just takes time. But yeah, it came in all both corners all completely dented, not even a hey, just suck it up and live with it type of thing. It looked like somebody threw it on the ground. So so waiting on that to come in and kind of kick off after House of X, Powers of X, the Krakoa era.
All right. Well, should we go ahead and actually get into some Morbius?
I think it's Morbid time.
Oh, you did it. You said it. All right. Here we go. Let's see. I've switched up how I've got to the streaming software working, so this might change things a little bit. Okay.
By the way, that from what I understand, they never actually say that in the movie. I haven't seen the movie yet, right? Because I still have to watch all those Sony Spider-Man villain movies that went nowhere and none of them did well. I started to watch the Kraven the Hunter movie on a plane, and it actually wasn't terrible, right? But it just wasn't. I mean, it just doesn't feel like Kraven the Hunter if it's not in a Spider-Man world, right? But apparently that meme is kind of like in the sense like 6-7, where it never happens in the movie and people just associate it with the movie, so they just say it's Morbin time thing. So
yeah, that's my understanding. I was going to actually start writing down how many times we've said it, and I neglected to do so. That's got to be at least 3 now, right? I've never seen the movie either. I haven't, same as you, I haven't seen any of those Spider-Man villain movies, not even the Venom ones. But my understanding is that phrase is never said. Okay,
Well, the Venom ones are fun. You should watch the Venom movies because as long as you just don't care and like go in with low expectations, they're like fun superhero comedy, whatever, that's like early 2000 superhero movies or something like that. And they're pretty decent. Like I actually like all three of the Venom movies.
Okay.
For different reasons. Yeah.
Is that the same advice for reading this Morbius epic? Go in with low expectations and don't care?
Yeah, I am. I mean, not to bury the lead here, but I mean this 70s era horror as they're just starting out with this stuff is a bit rough as they get going. But why don't you kick us off before I start diving into things?
Sure. Okay. So this week's volume is Morbius Epic Collection Volume 1, The Living Vampire. Of course, as always, there are spoilers ahead, so make sure you read this book before continuing on, provided you don't want to be spoiled. Otherwise, we're not going to be held responsible. So this volume contains Amazing Spider-Man number 101 to 102, Marvel Team Up 3 to 4, Giant Size Superheroes number 1, Adventures into Fear number 20 to 26, and Materials from Vampire Tales number 1 through 8, as well as Giant Size Werewolf by Night number 4. This volume has the debut issues of Michael Morbius, the Living Vampire, and it goes into his first solo stories, including a sci-fi versus sorcery drama in the Adventures into Fear title, and a grittier vampire buddy road trip story that we get in the Vampire Tales magazine. Now, the creation of Morbius, the character, I think is something that's quite interesting. The Amazing Spider-Man issues from 96 to 98. Stojr, you'll recall, those were issued without the Comics Code Authority in the U.S., well, anywhere, because the U.S. Department of Health requested an anti-drug themed story to end up in a Marvel comic. And of course, depictions of drugs were forbidden by the Comics Code at the time. Stan Lee, though, because the U.S. Department of Health wanted it, does that storyline where Harry Osborn is getting addicted to drugs and they need to help him and so forth. So those earlier issues saw the Comics Code Authority revise its rules. Now, vampires had once been banned because of the Comics Code Authority, but now, after the drug issues in Spider-Man, well, vampires are permitted now. And it seems Marvel lost no time whatsoever because Morbius' debut issue is just a couple of issues after that. And Spider-Man 101 also happens to be Roy Thomas's debut issue on the title. Stan Lee took a break for about 5 issues to work on a screenplay, it seems.
Oh, I didn't know that about the screenplay. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it came of anything, but there you go. I'll add that this is, like the last one we did, Amazing Spider-Man 17, this is another epic that Curtis Finley has done on the Epic Marvel podcast. He's already reviewed this, but he cut out the Vampire Tale magazines to cover in a separate episode, which, as far as I can tell, that didn't happen, or maybe I didn't find them. So we're going to cover those, and I'll add that I at least wrote down my notes and my thoughts before listening to that issue. I think there's one thing that he brought up that I didn't know that I will share here. But otherwise, these will be our original thoughts. All right. Yeah. Are you ready?
Before we jump into Amazing Spider-Man 101, I did read ahead a little bit, and that separator page that they have in this book actually occurs in Volume 2 of the epic. There's a panel on Adventures into Fear number 30, which is just a small panel at the bottom corner of the page in Volume 2 of the epic that they basically just stole from and blew it up. That one, yeah.
Yep. I'm ashamed to... You bringing that up reminds me I forgot one thing for later in the show that involved this page, so I'm just going to have to hold that up to the screen when that comes around. Okay. Oh, let's see. Phil says, and yet the O'Neil Adams drug issues of Green Lantern come out within months of those Spider-Man issues, and they were passed by the code, even with Speedy shooting up on the cover. Wow. I wonder if it was a similar situation. I have no idea, because I'm a Marvel zombie. I don't know about the DC stuff. All right, let's get into our issues. We're going to start with Amazing Spider-Man number 101, A Monster Called Morbius, script by Roy Thomas, art by Gil Kane, inks by Frank Giacoa. Spidey grows an additional 4 arms in the previous Amazing Spider-Man issue, and so he flees to Dr. Kurt Connor's house in Southampton to work on a cure in private. Meanwhile, a ship offshore has a vampire problem by the name of Morbius. Morbius abandons the ship, swims to shore, and discovers Spider-Man, whom he decides to attack and feed on, because he is a tasty treat, I guess. Well, I guess all the ladies in the Marvel Universe think Spider-Man is a tasty treat, don't they? Sorry, that's where my mind goes when I let it. Just as Morbius is about to chow down, Dr. Connors steps in, and he changes into the Lizard, and we're about to have an all-out brawl between animal men. Alright, Stojr.
Well, I mean, for me, I think it's worth pointing out that my initial interaction with this storyline occurred in a what if issue. So what if number 42, what if Spider-Man kept his 6 arms, was my introduction to Spider-Man and his 6 arms. It actually has some great art in that issue. And in that particular comic, the way that they changed the outcome of events is Morbius actually jumps off the ship and gets eaten by a shark. So he's never there to help cure Spider-Man. And then, Lizard and Spider-Man fighting ensues and goes from there. So I actually really love this art. It kind of evokes, Mark Bagley in the 90s and the way the Lizard looks then. I prefer this look versus the way he's in the book there. So yeah, this is the first appearance of Morbius, as you said earlier. This is a character-driven epic collection. So what we're going to find as we go through this is that it's going to jump around to these different books because we're following the character, similar to Carnage, but Carnage was a little bit more straightforward in just Spider-Man at the time, so to speak. And this will jump around. The beginning of issue 101 here has a lot of like soap opera elements. It feels very 70s, feels very Three's Company. If he just had a better excuse for Gwen, she wouldn't be crying on the other end of the phone, type of stuff. And I think that the art in the actual issue of 101, there's some panels that I think are not as good as others, right? I think they got to issue 100. They take a little bit of a breather here. I forget if Gil did the previous issue of issue 100, but some of these splash pages are really good, like the introductory page and the page where Morbius is decking Spider-Man. But there's some other pages in there that aren't as clean. So I like this. I like that how it's setting up this character. I just wish it was a little bit less like soap opera and drama from that perspective. I know that's what it was. Spider-Man was at the time, but I think that's a really cool element here of Spider-Man has this power where there's no outward appearance, right? It's similar to like when you compare the X-Men's to the Morlocks, where Storm, you're this goddess on the African plain, and you just don't have pupils, but otherwise you're flying around and beautiful. We're living in the sewers here, and half my face is melting off, right? So how would Spider-Man deal with these 6 arms? I also think it's interesting that we picked this at this point in time, and right now there's a comic called Radioactive Spider-Man that's on the stands right now. It's part of the Age of X storyline, which is basically a future storyline in the X-Men where everybody's like mutated or something like that, and a lot of people died. I'm not reading it yet and following it. But in essence, Spider-Man is mutated and is sort of he's got that mutant gene now, or mutant virus, or whatever it is, and further mutated his body. It reminds me a lot of this, right? Like, how would Spider-Man deal with the fact that he's not a clean-cut boy, as you said earlier, all the girls are going to follow him around. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, in the context of a Spider-Man comic, this is a great issue. In the previous issue 100, you have that reveal of suddenly he has 6 arms, even though he was trying to get rid of his spider powers, and it backfires terribly on him. It was weird. And I think having read that What If issue when I was a kid set me up for this. There is some of this weird stuff in Spider-Man's past. This issue 101 was actually one of the first Silver Age Spider-Man comics I bought. I don't know how I stumbled on it, and it was probably because of the 6 arms thing. I thought, I'm interested in that. Let's see what's going on there. As for a Morbius issue, we don't really know anything about Morbius or what sets him apart from other vampires. He's just a dude on a boat who swims to shore, and he's a vampire. So, it doesn't really mean much. I also found the word balloons to be kind of difficult to follow here. Now, Artie Simic is the letterer for this issue, and he's been a Marvel staple for years, really over a decade even. I would guess that artist Gil Kane perhaps wasn't leaving him enough room on the page to put the words in. It often felt jumbled at times. Although Gil Kane's art is dramatic, it's over the top, and that can be fun too. All right, should we move on to our next issue?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, we were talking about getting ahead and trying to do some of those X-Men recordings today, so if we're going to do that, we got to move. All right, Amazing Spider-Man number 102, Vampire at Large. We start with a nice slugfest between Morbius the Lizard and Spider-Man. Morbius manages to bite the Lizard, which temporarily changes him back to Curt Connors. So Spidey and the Lizard chase after Morbius to get the enzyme from his blood that can and does cure both of them of their conditions. In the midst of this, we get Morbius's origin. Michael Morbius, a renowned scientist, has a rare blood disease, which he's trying to cure using electric shocks and a serum made of, quote, fluids distilled from vampire bats. After undergoing the treatment, Morbius is changed into a living vampire with super strength at night, light or hollow bones which allow him to fly, and of course, a thirst for blood. All right, Stojr.
So, apparently Michael didn't have a nose when he was human, which I thought was interesting. He just gets a different color palette when he turns into a vampire. I found that the screaming of an enzyme was hilarious, like as if that was I don't know, just for some reason that just struck me as funny on that page where he's just screaming an enzyme, as if that's supposed to get the kids at the time excited of what he's talking about. I also think, a little bit going back to last issue, but like, it's interesting that like, I always had this perception of Morbius as like an anti-hero, as somebody who was fighting against his thing, but he's just straight up mass murdering people in these books, right? Like he killed everybody on the ship. Every time he gets the hunger, he kills somebody. And I found that compelling for this time. Like I didn't expect that at this time, right? Like I feel like at this time, anybody who died in a book was like a casualty of like almost like an accident, right? I think of like, Doc Ock killing Gwen Stacy's dad around this time. I know it hasn't happened yet specifically at this time, but it's always, it wasn't on purpose, right? You don't have somebody just straight up murdering people. Like he kills the whole boat, drains them all, right? So I find that interesting. I think that lends to his character and the likability, but at the same time, they don't emphasize it at all. They just like go right past it, and you almost miss it, right? You're like it's like one panel, and then the boat's gone and it drained or something. So I find that interesting in this.
We lost Stojr. I thought. Oh, there you go. I can see you.
That's weird. My camera just stopped for a second.
Weird.
And then I guess the last part I would say is that at the end, it's interesting that his arms just disappear. Like they just
yeah.
They didn't just like fall off and you have to throw them into the smokestack like the clone eventually has to be gotten rid of. But it's very interesting. How about you?
Interesting you say the arms thing. I never really thought about it because I was just like, 70s weirdness. Why not? Arms growing, arms disappearing. But yeah, you're right. Those arms have to go somewhere. They don't just get sucked back up into his body. Or I guess maybe that's what they're trying to make us think. And he's got a couple of weird arms in there. I don't know. I do think it was interesting that Morbius has a scientific background for his creation. Like Spider-Man, he's a product of science crossing with the natural world. Like, I knew there was a science background to it. I think I may have missed in previous times that it was, the enzyme of a vampire bat or, whatever. So that I think is quite interesting that this is not a supernatural vampire. This is a scientific man-made vampire creation, which does present interesting different possibilities for his stories. In this one, I thought Gil Kane's art was really dynamic. It works really well in this one, even if he doesn't leave a whole lot of room for word balloons. I recall seeing a few issues that he did of the Incredible Hulk when I read the second epic volume of that, and I wasn't too impressed there. But his art in this issue is great. Clearly, he's I don't know if maybe those Hulk issues were rushed because they were cycling between different artists for a while there, it seemed, but. It's definitely been a few years when he did this issue versus those Hulk issues, and these ones are looking really nice, I think. Cramped, but nice. All right, let's go on to our next one, which is Marvel Team Up number 3. Here we go. The Power to Purge, which sounds gross when I think about it now. All right, Gary Conway, the scripter, Ross Andrew, artist, and Frank Giacoa on inks. We learned that Morbius did not die at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 102, but he managed to survive and convert a man who was squabbling with his brother into a vampire. How he does that, I don't know, because I don't think he ever has that power again. Morbius's fiancée, Martine, tracks down the Fantastic Four to get them to find the missing Morbius, and the FF put the Human Torch on the case. Well, Spider-Man stumbles upon both the Torch and Morbius at ESU, Empire State University. That leads to a tussle where the vampire brother dies and Morbius gets away.
Yeah, I mean, this issue's fine for me. It's always good to get the team up stuff and see the Fantastic Four with Spider-Man, the Human Torch dynamic, and him having different points of view. But again, it feels a little silly that with modern comic book eyes looking back, like they're sitting there arguing about whether you're going to beat the crap out of somebody. Meanwhile, they're just like straight up murdering somebody right next to you and they die anyway, right? So. Yeah. And I think the fact that those two are brothers is lends some weight to the story, not just two random people, where there's a death involved. And yeah, I'll touch more on my thoughts on the powers of Morbius as goes forward. But when you were talking about him having more scientific origin. It would be interesting if they leaned into that more. And I'm trying to think as I go through these issues. Obviously, they come back to it, but he's thrown into the supernatural world throughout this whole epic collection. It almost would hook me a little bit more if he constantly didn't believe any of this stuff. But all of this, every time there's this cult or some magical thing or some other vampire powers, it's just as if this is all commonplace. And it, if he's a man of science, if you threw Reed Richards into this world, he'd be looking for an explanation for everything at every step of the way, and wouldn't believe that the mind control powers of a vampire or whatever, right? So. That would have, I think, hooked me a little bit more back then. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I don't really have many thoughts on this issue. It's fine. Nothing really stands out to me. Spider-Man and Human Torch both being there feels forced, but I think this is also issue 3 of Marvel Team Up. I think they were leaning towards it being kind of a Spider-Man and Human Torch book, but then still trying to find their feet on that, and it just kind of becomes another Spider-Man book with other people. There's actually a couple issues where I think the Human Torch is, and no Spider-Man, it's just the Torch there, but anyway, if they ever come out with a Marvel Team Up epic, we can worry about that then. So this is fine. Nothing really stands out to me, honestly. Which I guess in some ways is high praise at this moment for this book. All right, let's go to Marvel Team Up number 4, and then the X-Men. Gil Kane takes over on pencils, and Steve Mitchell takes over on inks. Morbius kidnaps fellow blood scientist Hans Jorgensen, but Spidey gets the blame for the kidnapping, somehow, I don't remember. The X-Men go hunting for Spider-Man and discovers that Morbius is the real kidnapper, and so they confront Morbius, defeat him, and rescue Jorgensen. Spider-Man had been sick for weeks during all of this because of the enzyme from Morbius that helped him get rid of his extra arms, but Dr. Jorgensen finds a cure. Thoughts?
So this issue is also collected in the X-Men Epic Collection, Volume 4. It's always darkest before the dawn. So if, for those that are not familiar with that Epic Collection, that is basically a collection of team up issues because the X-Men were canceled at the time. So this is one of those issues. It's also before Jean gets very powerful, so you kind of see her as the damsel in distress in this issue, as opposed to the powerful Phoenix Force that she will eventually become. Especially if you're following along with the daily Chris Claremont run reading club that we're participating in. Gil's art feels a bit rushed here. There are some pages here that I just like it just look a little, very loose, I guess is what I'm thinking of as I go through this. And there's other pages like the first page of the issue that I think are great. They're really strong. So kind of depends on where he's at in the issue. There's not as much consistency there for me. And the last page seems a little out of character for Spider-Man. Like I kind of would be interested in like a love triangle between Scott, Jean, and Spider-Man, but for him to just steal a kiss and then leap out a window, shattering it, it's just like, dude, there's consent and there's like property damage you're doing here. Like, what the hell are you doing? What's going on? That's not power and responsibility. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun to get the X-Men and Spider-Man together. So.
Yeah, but at least him kissing Jean, he has a type, right? Redheads. Even though,
yeah,
I don't know if he's dating Gwen
not
at this time.
No,
is Gwen dead at this point?
No. Gwen's around because in issue 101, he's she's on the phone crying because she's trying to make a date with him, and so. I think the definition of dating, like, I don't know if they're like exclusive. I don't even know if they ever call it out. But she dies. What is it? 130, 140 or something like that. Yeah, it's 121. There you go.
So yeah, and given that this one was just a year after ASM 101, 102, then yeah, Gwen's still kicking about. They're still dating. So yeah, shame on Spidey. I do like, as you were saying, the X-Men book was canceled at this point. I liked how the X-Men were in street clothes and all this because they weren't really active. Even though I think are they in street clothes on the cover or are they on uniforms? No, they're in street clothes. So I thought that was nice, kind of an acknowledgement that they're not really going on much. I kind of feel like I ought to give this book a no prize award named after the famous James Bond love interest, plot holes galore. I do not know why Morbius is after Jorgensen, particularly because he says it's to cure him of his vampirism, but later he says he doesn't actually want that to happen. Cyclops defeats Morbius by bouncing his force beam off a mirror, which suggests that he has a laser, not a force beam. Jorgensen cures Spider-Man via an inoculation, but that's not how inoculations work. You have to use the inoculation before a person gets sick in order to prevent getting sick. So there's just a lot of mess in this one. And to your point about Gil Kane being maybe a bit rushed, maybe that's true. I felt like he wasn't quite as over the top in this issue as he was in ASM 101, 102. And I'm not sure if that's a bad thing or not. Being a little subdued is okay, but yeah, it doesn't feel as dynamic.
I think it's interesting, too, that for all of them in their street clothes, Warren can't find a shirt. His street clothes are just shirtless, as if he couldn't just cut some slits in the back of a shirt or something.
Yeah, but if he's wearing a shirt to hide his wings, maybe he has them wrapped up usually. I don't know.
I mean, if he wants service at any New York bodega, he needs a shirt on. So,
All right, well, let's move on to one of Morbius's first solo ventures, Vampire Tales #1. The story is just simply called Morbius. This is by Steve Gerber and art by Pablo Marcos. Morbius escapes the X-Men and travels to Los Angeles to find his fiancée Martine. While he's in LA, he gets wrapped up with a cult and has to fight a demon that lived inside a crystal ball. Here we go. What do you think, Stojr?
I mean, I feel like I'm at the beginning of the 70s horror roller coaster that we're about to go on through these issues. Wondering if Curtis had the right idea of skipping some of the things that we're about to go through. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out how much I love the corner box on the cover up at the top left. That is amazing. I'm glad they keep that through a lot of the Vampire Tales that go through here. This I believe is was published in magazine format and thus was not subject to the comic code at all. So you're going to get progressively more mature storylines in here. It's black and white. I kind of wish that I was around. This is what 74, 75 or something like that, if I remember correctly. I don't remember. This, yeah,
Yeah,
well, the epic goes to 75, so this is probably even earlier, 72 or
73.
73.
Yep, August
Yeah,
1973.
so I'm -9 at this point in time. So I wasn't around yet, but I feel like this would have been cool to like pick up at the grocery store or something like that off the magazine rack and kind of flip through. So I kind of wish that I would have been able to experience this the way it was published. In general, I think these vampire tales are a little like corny at times, right? They're taking photos from old movies and overlaying text over top of it. But as a kid in the 70s, when you're shopping for groceries or bringing something home and there's nothing on TV, like this would have been great. I feel like I would have loved this stuff. But as far as the storyline goes, just there,
Yeah.
it's fun. I'm gonna have a lot less to say as we go through some of these vampire tales and Journey into Fear stuff as we go through. And as Phil points out, the cover is beautiful, right?
Hmm.
So I for a second when I was writing my notes for this, I thought my pages were a little bit clinging together, and I didn't think that they reprinted the covers. And I had all this text in my notes about why didn't they reprint the covers? These covers are great. And then I got to like the third issue and the cover was there, and I went back and saw that they're all there. So yeah, these are beautiful covers on these vampire things. They really hook you.
Yeah, and not only the covers, but we regularly get the content pages for the Vampire Tales ones too, because usually there's some picture of Morbius in there. So that was nice to include. I like that. I have been on a kick of getting these old magazines. I need to stop collecting things. I don't really need to collect more things, but I think it was the apologies. Hopefully, I hit that cough button in time. I think it was the new Titan Savage Sword of Conan books came out, and I started picking those up and was really enjoying those. And I've kind of fallen back in. Well, they had Epic magazines. That was the first thing before we actually get Epic comics. Oh, here it comes again. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually have one of those handy. I think it's my only copy, which is this Thor epic book. I think God Loves Man Kills was released as one of these. Things like that in this. Oh wait, no, this is just Marvel graphic novel, not epic. My
Yeah.
bad.
Let's see here. Actually, I've got one over here. Uh, so yeah, they had a whole
Yeah.
magazine, Epic Illustrated. These ones are, well, some of them are in black and white, some of them are in color. But I've kind of really been getting into those old magazine stories. So this was fun to actually have in the Epic. The art is amazing. I think the black and white actually adds to the creepiness. So that kind of worked for me, given that Morbius is a living vampire. He's not your traditional vampire, but he's still a vampire, right? It should still be kind of creepy.
Mhm.
And I agree. The story is a little odd. I find it an off choice that the girls that he's interacting with are in a cult called the Children of Satan, and yet they're walking around with crosses on their cheeks and they're wanting to help strangers. It doesn't seem very satanic, and yet it's trying to be satanic somehow. So I thought that was just a little bit weird. Then again, maybe the definitions of satanic were a bit different in the 70s. We didn't quite have the satanic panic of the 80s that you and I grew up with. So maybe that's a difference in time that I'm just unaware of.
And what's interesting is that you get into modern era of the 2000 2020s that and some of these Church of Satan places are actually more positive than the Christian places that are out there because they're almost purposely rebuking against some norms and to try and just get equal footing as it relates to the law, and they're out there doing good and things like that. They're not actually satanic, they're just kind of
They're using the
calling
name.
themselves that.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
using the
and
name to
as
needle.
a way to drive that anger and sort of drive that conversation, especially in these really right wing super Christian areas that don't act the way they preach. So
Sure. Okay, let's head on to Giant Size Superheroes number one. Man Wolf at Midnight, written by Jerry Conway, art by Gil Kane, inks by Mike Esposito. Excuse me, Mike. Morbius hatches a new plan to find a blood specialist to help him cure him of his condition. He returns to New York, enlists the aids of the Man Wolf to be a distraction to Spider-Man, and he attempts to kidnap Professor Harold Ward. Well, Spidey came up with a plan in advance with Professor Ward. The two of them duped Morbius into believing that Professor Ward's work was destroyed when Morbius and Spider-Man fought. Yeah, this is another weird one. All right, Stojer.
I mean, first, just to point out, like there's a Spider-Man Epic Collection with the same name, so obviously this issue is also reprinted in that Epic Collection, Man Wolf at Midnight. I'm fine with this issue. I guess this issue highlights one of my core reasons why I don't have Doctor Strange epics or a lot of magic related books, and I think it comes down to I crave the rules, or I don't understand the rules, or there are no rules for how magic works. Like the whole idea of the amulet and him changing into a werewolf, and Morbius can drink some of his blood and then mind control him the next morning. Like, I guess some of that is all pulled from vampire lore or werewolf lore or previous issues of how the man wolf was taken care of, but it's a lot to keep track of, and and even me at my old age and having read and watched vampire movies and werewolf movies in the past, like I'm still a little like lost as to like, all right, what are the rules of the game here? It feels like you're just kind of making it up as you go along. So that's my thought on sort of the magic elements. The ending felt a little anticlimactic. It felt, again, I'm going to go back to the Three's Company, joke from earlier. It just feels like a misunderstanding, and it's, in the sense that, oh, well, you didn't really smash the equipment, but you might destroy the equipment. If they just sat down and talked, Spider-Man would probably like actually cure him, right? He would sit there and help to find a cure of this mass murderer, by the way, who keeps murdering people, and we just keep fighting and having him disappear. And then finally, like the art's fine. Not picking on it at all. But however, I couldn't remember if this was a reprint of Amazing Spider-Man or if this was just in the Amazing Spider-Man epic. And when I went back and looked for that, the way Man-Wolf was drawn in Amazing Spider-Man 124 and 125 was really strong. So it almost felt like a little bit of a letdown reading this issue, because of how well I think that would have been his debut was in those other Amazing Spider-Man issues. But overall, it's fine. It's just, it's kind of just a quick ending to something here that could have been cooler. What do you think?
Yeah, let's see real quick. Phil in the chat just says 666 Fifth Avenue in the background. That's Marvel's offices. I just assumed they were playing off of the number of the beast there with 666. So that's cool. I didn't know that. Also, to your point about not liking Doctor Strange, I almost feel like this is going to be a mission of mine. I'm not a huge Doctor Strange fan, but the first epic with Steve Ditko is amazing. It is fantastic. Yes, you were right. There are no rules to magic, and if what you're looking for is rules and structure, okay, you're not going to find that. But the art is incredible. It's the trippiest stuff in the world. I really enjoy it, and I'd love to do it sometime. But anyway. For this one, I like the idea of Morbius teaming up with the Man-Wolf. We have two classic monsters, or at least Marvel's version of them. The kind of twist on both. We've got a living vampire. We have not a werewolf, but the Man-Wolf. He's slightly different. The two of them working together sounds like it could be fun, but the efforts Morbius had to go through to revive John Jameson, to turn him into the Man-Wolf again, doesn't really pay off for what he does in the book. Man-Wolf briefly fights Spider-Man and then is caught in Spider's web, and that's it. It just seems pointless, honestly. And I agree with you. If they just sat down and talked, yeah, Spider-Man probably would have helped him out, because that's what Spidey does. Otherwise, this is just a retreading of the Marvel team-up books that we had with a different Blood Doctor, right? It's pretty much just the same thing.
And did you understand why they reprinted the apology from the editor at the end of this? Like, I guess I'm not comprehending what they're saying here, but like I don't know why that's here. Like they don't put letter pages in epics, and they have this page here. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to put another filler page if they didn't have to, but it kind of has nothing to do with Morbius unless I'm missing something here
No,
on that.
I wonder if it's just kind of a weird
One, yeah.
insight into the publishing of this book because they were going to launch a whole new thing and then it just turned into these different giant size issues for different, because it is kind of a weird thing that happens at this time in Marvel, that you get these random giant size issues every now and then for different books. And I think I wonder if maybe that's all it is, because they printed it and they explained it in this first one, and so they're just including it. I don't know though.
Okay.
Heck,
Just curious.
there's a whole omnibus called Giant Size Marvel, I think, that collects all of these things. I've been tempted to
Mhm.
buy it, but I'm kind of also thinking, well, I just hope they end up in the epics anyway. I don't want another omnibus on my shelf if I don't need it. So
Well, and I think like the individual giant size books probably are getting collected in their individual lines, just not together, so to
yeah,
speak. So
yeah.
yeah.
I've heard it's weird. I've heard that the giant size Spider-Man ones are going to end up in the team up books if that ever comes out. But I'm fairly certain in the Essential line they were collected with Amazing Spider-Man. I could be wrong because it's been 15 years since I read all of those, and maybe I was just conflating team up and Amazing Spider-Man in my mind. I don't know.
Mhm.
All right, let's head on to Adventure into Fear number 20, Morbius the Living Vampire, written by Mike Frederick, art by Paul Gulacy, inks by Jay Abel. We're back in Los Angeles again, where a rabbi, a priest, and a vampire walk into a bar. Or into a basement. Seriously, a rabbi and a priest come upon Morbius, but instead of being afraid of him, they try to cure him. And when the cure fails, it's revealed that the priest is actually an agent of Satan, and he's able to take control of Morbius and sends him on a mission to murder his rival, who happens to be a small child. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
I really like Paul's art in this issue. I think it fits the 70s and the vampire and Morbius vibe. I think the first couple pages are really cool looking. They're very different than other things at that time. I think this might be the strongest issue of the book, to be honest with you. If I was going to show somebody Morbius and want to get them hooked on something, it would be this. I like the disarming nature of the joke of the priest, the rabbi, and Morbius together, and it distracts you from the twist. You don't see it coming, right? Especially at this time where like there's a lot more jokey elements in books, and they kind of go the other direction. The last page where he's supposed to kill a child is shocking and a great splash page. So I think this is a great issue. I think it's the best issue in the book, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. This one is very good, although I will say we get another repeat of Morbius's origin, which is a little tedious at this point, but of course, when these issues came out, it made perfect sense. They were not one issue after another. You had to tell the reader that Morbius is not a typical vampire. It just kind of gets a little repetitive in a collective format like this. But that's no fault of the books. They're
Well, and it's 3 pages too, right? So it's not just his origin; it's a retread of like all of his appearances, right? You get like a
mhm.
page of the X-Men stuff and or 2 pages of the X-Men stuff. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I was confused by the priest when I first read him. The priest is called Damon, and he looks a lot like Damon Hellstrom, the son of Satan. So I was initially thinking, wait a minute, is this Son of Satan? I've never really read Son of Satan, so I don't know him well. But the name is spelled differently. The name Hellstrom's never given here, and also this Damon does not make it out of this series alive. Sorry, spoiler. That too, of course, is a tell that this is someone else. But at first glance, I thought, wait a minute, he's a Satanist? Is this Son of Satan? What's going on here? So that confused me, but that's a me problem.
No, I had the same thought. I was wondering if it was him too. Same boat where I didn't read a lot of that. I think my extent of having anything with him is maybe one Defenders epic, which I have not read through yet. But otherwise, yeah, I'm with you. I thought I was I was thinking it was the same person. Now, when he's in the Epic collections, when in the Defenders books, I don't know if his origin is uh, pre or post what we're reading right now. So it's at least in the neighborhood because he was part of the Defenders in the 80s. So.
Hmm. Yeah, and I have no idea. It just occurred to me. I feel like I owe you an apology, Stojer. We've got to come up with a new camera solution because I have the camera flipped on how things are. Because something about Discord, they flip my camera, and I've got my Marvel hat, I've got my background screen, and everything, and all these things you're putting up are flipped around backwards. So I've got to figure out a solution. We'll figure it out. It's still a new podcast, right? We're figuring things out. Okay, let's go to Adventure into Fear number 21, Project Second Genesis, which, given that we're reading the X-Men epic by the same name, or not exact same, but close enough, it threw me for a loop there. All right, Steve Gerber takes over on writing, Gil Kane resumes his Morbius art duties, and he is joined by Vince Colletta on inks. Morbius confronts the child, which can somehow change her form into an adult, and after defeating her, he takes the child/woman to a people who are called the Caretakers. The Caretakers are creepy alien dudes who taught humanity in our earliest stages of evolution. The Caretakers reveal they are trying to save mankind and that Damon is trying to stop them. So Morbius now works for the Caretakers, and he confronts Damon, only to find that his beloved Martine, his fiancée, is now working with Damon too. All right. What do you
So,
think?
I mean, for me, when I look at this issue, I think that there's some interesting things that they set up here with the caretakers and Morbius. I guess the thing that I walk away from with this is, like I feel like there was potential for more in certain areas, and I kind of wish that they did more. So, like, you have a huge page spread on 174, 175 in this, but like it feels like they blew up a panel just to fill the space, right? Like you get the characters in the background with their green cloaks, and they basically have dots for eyes and a line for a face, and this could have been so cool. You have these almost like Dr. Manhattan, like pink, not blue people in the background. And if you take a 5 steps back from this and look at this page from across the room, it looks awesome. But the minute it's 2 feet from your face or a foot from your face, you start to notice like how loose this particular issue is. The cat thing is, and I know we're going to get into that more, but how much cooler would this have been if Puma was around, and this was Puma, like, and you just kind of had another anti-hero in that same world? I know that like it doesn't necessarily fit the storyline for where they go in the next issue, but this sort of cat demon thing is kind of cool to look at, but I don't know. It sets up the wackiness that's going to ensue in future issues. So I guess I'm penalizing it a bit because I know where it's going.
Sure. Kind of hard not to in a way because this is it. It has potential. It has so much potential, but that's almost all it has, right? I'll admit I was genuinely surprised by the child changing into an adult. I wish we could have seen more of that. That looked like it had some potential, something weird there. At this stage, I feel like this book is struggling to find its identity. It is getting pulled into two different directions. And, like, we have the Marvel team-up books where Morbius is trying to find a cure. And it seemed like in the Vampire Tales, Morbius is searching to find Martine, right? In this one, there's a little bit of that going on too, but then also we have this new caretaker struggle thing going on. And I'll talk more when I give my final thoughts here, but I think what is being set up is an interesting idea, but it is poorly executed. All right, let's
And
go ahead.
I want to give it some slack because it wasn't meant to be collected like this, right?
Right.
Like, but at the same time, it does have some consistency of writers and artists. So, I'm torn on, how much slack to actually give it. But yeah, we'll get more into it more as we go forward and at the end.
All right, so let's see. Adventure into Fear number 22, The Vampire Must Die. Rick Buckler's credited with layouts and El Dominguez credited as the artist. The story gets even weirder as a cat person summoned by Damon and Martine escapes with Morbius back into his other dimensional realm with an overpopulation problem. Morbius is basically given a hunting license to cull the cat herd, but as soon as he kills one cat person, he gets chased out of town. Yep, here it goes.
Did I take acid when I read this book? Like, am I like were the pages laced with acid and I get my '70s credential card? Like, I don't know what to say about this.
I think it would have been better if you
mean,
had taken acid. Not that we're encouraging
I
that.
mean, in a sense, like it's kind of cool to just like let go and and just embrace the silliness, right? I would have hated this so much more if there was like a secret cat culture like in one of the boroughs of New York, and we were this was all in the Marvel universe proper. So I'll let it off the hook slightly because it's in its own world, and we're kind of on this crazy adventure. But I mean, the further we move, the faster we move away from this, the better.
Sure.
I don't know.
I'll add, I can get down with summoning a demon in a vampire book. That's fine, but this is getting a little too weird. I like how Morbius is a different take on a vampire by, again, being scientifically created vampire. I would still expect some supernatural stuff to be part of a vampire book, but interdimensional plane hopping is better for Doctor Strange or the Fantastic Four. Morbius ought to be kept on streets and dark alleyways or in laboratories, right? And here's where I will add the one thing I learned from Curtis Finley's Epic Marvel podcast. It has to do with these cat people. Apparently, these are the same cat people that Tigra will come from. Now, I'm familiar with the character Tigra, but I haven't really read anything with her in it. I mean, I've read an issue here or there. She's like a hypersexualized Catwoman, something like that. Always hitting on dudes.
I mean, I've read her West Coast Avengers, and she was a big character in Mighty Avengers during the post-Civil War or post-Secret Invasion era. So I've read that stuff, but like they kind of don't go back to her origins, so to speak, very much at that point in time. Maybe in West Coast Avengers they do, and it's on some things I'm skipping over my head. But so yeah, I have no recollection from the 30 or 40 or whatever issues that I've read of her in that she was from there. Like I've never picked up on that.
Yeah, and I don't personally know, but that is what Curtis and his co-hosts said on their podcast regarding this epic. All right, let's see if we can move away as fast as we can. All right, Adventure into Fear number 23, Alone Against Arcturus. Craig Russell takes over on art, and Vince Coletta returns for inks. Morbius has apparently arrived on an alien world, and after some mishaps trying to find a humanoid with blood that he can feast on, he has a mental conversation with one of the inhabitants that warns him against the caretakers on Earth. Apparently, the caretakers attempted to help their planet along, which resulted in genetic mutations and terrible warfare to where the people on this planet no longer care about their own lives. And yet, they care enough to not want the caretakers to do the same thing on Earth.
I mean, I really like the art in this issue. I think it's very consistent throughout the issue. I like that. Reading the issue, it feels like one of those 70s movies, like Soylent Green is People, like you kind of come, away with like that same vibe, that you had during that time. So I guess it like fits with the media of the time. I do like the way Morbius looks on that first page that you have up there. But we go from cat people, cat society to eyeball person with mutants, and the mutant thing is interesting because it's part of the story. Like it's built into what they're talking about here. But like the guy with the single eyeball and the cape as he walks around and does his Superman poses on like page 212, right when he's about to drain the woman, is a little weird. I'm not really sure what to say other than good art, weird eyeball people.
Yeah, again, the Arcturians' reasoning to hate the caretakers and to care about Earth, that's just weird. But I do love Craig Russell's art, fully agree. Russell was drawing this at the same time he was working on the Killraven comic. And I think his Killraven work has a lot more ingenuity to it. He's maybe putting a little bit more effort into that. His unique layouts, his diverse alien creatures still kind of shine through in this. The Killraven epic is out there, and that one, I've read that one. That's a tough one in that, kind of like this, it feels very directionless to begin with. But then when Craig Russell comes on, and I forget who the writer was he was working with, but the back half of that book is just great. The artwork is amazing, and Russell shines here too. Not quite as much as he shines in Killraven, but there's still some great stuff here. All right, let's head over to Adventure into Fear number 24, Return to Terror. Jack Abel now takes over on inks, and even on that splash page there, you're getting more of that Craig Russell artwork, which is looking great. Okay, Morbius returns to Earth in an ancient spacecraft the Arcturians had created and were worshipping as a god for some reason. He just so happens to land in the street where Blade the vampire hunter finished killing an undead vampire, and of course the two end up fighting it out. Blade appears to get the upper hand, except that he believes he is facing a supernatural vampire, so when Morbius is exposed to a cross and it doesn't affect him, it does nothing, Morbius is able to shake off Blade and escape. All right, Stozier, your thoughts?
I mean, so it's interesting. Like, I kind of was more excited about this issue, having seen the Blade movies, or picked up some issues of Blood Hunt recently, or read them on Marvel Unlimited, I should say, in the past couple of years. But this doesn't feel like Blade. It feels like 70s Luke Cage, just that, as if he was wearing a costume hunting vampires. I like this setup on the last page of like them talking about how those people could potentially have a cure, and kind of playing into that and building them up as villains here. The cross thing is interesting. It plays into what we've been talking about, but at the same time, like, I thought the cross had to be like burned into their skin. Like, they're on like the other side of the roof, and it's like 15 feet away. Like, I'm not sure that it would have done any good, if it was a real vampire that far away. But it is what it is. This is a transition to get him back on Earth. And again, we're left with a full page recap of what Morbius has been up to. They really take their time in filling up that space to get to their page count with these things.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad Morbius is back on Earth. As much as I enjoy Craig Russell's space alien art, Morbius just fits better as an Earthbound character. The space hopping and the fact that he doesn't just get stranded into outer space is astounding and obviously a bit forced. As for Blade, I have never read any Blade before. I haven't even seen the films. The closest I've gotten is Blade's appearance in the Deadpool Wolverine movie. But I love that he is basically a caricature from a blaxploitation film, right? Very much like Luke Cage at this time, as you said. Marvel, rightfully so, is trying to diversify who their superheroes were. But of course, these were a bunch of white guys in New York who were doing their best to represent a strong black man. And so they all end up kind of sounding like Shaft, right? But it's what it is. It's part of the time. And there's some fun to it.
By the way, along with Venom, you got to add the Blade movies to your list, because the Blade movies are really good. I actually was watching the first one. It was on at the gym. They have a movie theater at the gym on cardio stuff, and they had Blade on this month. And I forgot how much I enjoyed that movie. It's a very much early 2000s, type of sensibility, but it's a good stuff.
I think I've seen all the other Marvel films that wasn't Fox put out, because they did the X-Men 2, and I think I've seen all of them except for the Blade ones, and I don't know why I just never got around to it. Now at some point with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it was just starting to get to be too much after the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Infinity War. I don't even remember the name of it anymore. It's just gotten to be too much, and so I've kind of fallen off a lot of the movies.
Yeah, Blade might be New Line, not Fox, but
okay.
makes sense. It's not, it's pre MCU.
Right.
So
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Vampire Tales number 2, The Blood Sacrifice of Amanda Saint. Story by Don McGregor, art by Rich Buckler and Pablo Marcos. As Morbius is about to take a young girl to satiate his bloodlust, a satanic cult gets between him and his meal. After chowing down on a cult member, Morbius decides he's going to do what he can to protect the girl, named Amanda Saint, and so he escorts her home and watches over her, only for the cult to return and defeat Morbius in another round. All right, Soju,
So
your
I
thoughts?
really enjoy the art in this issue. I think the cover's really cool. It's different. As you go into some of these picture pages, I wish they had better photocopiers. I think that like spider over top of like this um, whatever it is, this coffin, I guess it is really cool looking. I just wish it was a little clearer in that photocopy. The first page with Morbius kind of drawn into the bat, and sort of using that as the background, and some of the panel choices in here are really strong. You can see where they're sort of pressing that mature tone a bit more. I think it's this issue where there's I don't remember where it's at. Yeah,
The
like on
cabbie?
page 238,
Mm-hmm.
where the woman's getting dressed. They kind of they kind of skirt like that, whether she's nude or not in that thing, right? She's getting dressed, but then again, she looks like she maybe has a bodysuit on underneath. They can skirt any kind of coating in that same way. But it's a page before this that you have up.
Okay.
I think our page numbers are slightly different.
Oh yeah, yeah. There you go.
So yeah, and I mean, I don't know who can fault him for killing the taxi driver who's trying to talk to him. I mean, if anytime you've had an Uber driver trying to have a conversation with you, I think you've wanted to murder them, just like Morbius did here. And you close out this issue with a panel that looks like a skull, and everything drawn into there. So I think the art and the story like fits for what this is. I like this. I feel like it's an enjoyable issue of the Vampire Tales. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is another one of the good ones in this volume. It's not going to last, but this feels more like the vampire stories I was hoping to get. This is more street level. We're starting to get some hints of a desire by Morbius to do something good, right? That he has this bloodlust, but he doesn't like it. That has shown up before, but not often. But he's definitely struggling with his bloodlust in this one. And I agree with you. The series of panels that form the skull on page 243, clever, creepy little trick. And as we go through it, we get a lot of pages like this in the Vampire Tales. So that's at least one thing to look forward to in this volume.
I think they do a really good job in this issue, and I'll contrast that when we get to other issues of the black and white and the white space and the dark space, right? Making it muddy is sometimes an aesthetic choice and looks good, but other times, like it's better to be a little bit cleaner with the black and white, because you almost superimpose the white space for shadows in some panels, so it works better that way. The solid blacks here versus just a lot of like sketchy lines to invoke that, I think just work better on this black and white printing. So I think they did a good job on this one.
Yep. Okay, Vampire Tales number 3, Demon Fire. Rich Buckler stays on art, but Klaus Janson, I don't know. My inclination is to go Scandinavian there. Klaus Janson takes over on finishes. Morbius tracks down the Demon Fire cult that had captured Amanda Saint in the previous issue. The woman is about to be sacrificed to a demon spider, but when Morbius attempts to rescue her, the giant spider ends up drinking the blood of Morbius. But since Morbius is a living vampire, this somehow kills the spider, and the whole cult building comes crashing down around everyone, because that's typically happens when a giant demon is killed. All right, your thoughts, Stojer?
The best cover of the Vampire Tales so far. I think this cover is great. It's got Morbius showcased on it. I think that this story's fine. I think this starts to go into the territory of like, I kind of wish that the art was in color, because there's too much going on. Like when you add the webs over top of things and stuff like that, like then it becomes like you almost need to simplify the art a little bit when it's going to be black and white. Maybe it's just personal opinion. I was never a fan of the Essentials. Like I have like
Mm.
two copies of Essentials. I just didn't feel like they fit for me. So yeah, I think this is fine. It's supernatural. I keep going back in my head to something that you mentioned earlier about like Doctor Strange going to different universes and stuff like that. And now, as we're going through these issues and talking about them, I'm like, why isn't Doctor Strange popping up in these books, right? Like, it feels like, it would be the natural thing to have him team up with some other, mystical, beings in the Marvel universe. But like, when you have him doing all of this on his own, you lose like the scientific nature. Like how is he different from just a vampire in this
Yep.
book, right? And like it's almost like you need the straight man, or you need somebody to like bounce things off of to make that a little better. I don't hate this issue though. I think this issue is fine. What are your thoughts?
Um, Art, I think in this one's fantastic. I can get where you're saying with it being a little muddy, but maybe I desensitized myself to that by reading all those Essential volumes ages ago. Um, Don McGregor, though, he's writing in the second person in this, which annoys the crap out of me. I know it was a trend in the 70s. We see that in other places and other issues at this point in time in Marvel, but it just irritates me. I don't know why. That's a personal problem, though. That's not necessarily a book problem. The story is simple enough. The side story of the woman's boyfriend and his roommates didn't really feel necessary, but it didn't detract either. So it's just kind of that's fine. Let's keep plugging along to Vampire Tales issue number 4, Lighthouse of the Possessed. Tom Sutton takes over on art this time. Morbius accompanies Amanda Saint to Maine, where she is searching for her mother. Little does she know that her mother leads the local chapter of the Demon Fire cult, and their local demon called Bloodtide has ordered the death of both Amanda and Morbius. A fight with the cult members leads to Morbius killing Amanda's mother. Stojr?
So, I mean, this leans more into the, my critiques on the art. Although I do like the art in this issue, I feel like there's certain panels that I'm like, where they're trying to show the rainfall or the fog or things like that. And I feel like less would be more. But then at the same time, I think like the grotesque nature of Morbius in some of the panels and some of the other people in this issue, I think works well. So I'm a little torn on my critique, I guess is my point, right? Like, this one has some good examples of what I'm talking about, but at the same time, I do like this issue. They do fill out, with pictures like 3 pages this time. So with 2 pages with the table of contents, and then the lighthouse on the 3rd page is almost like a cover going into things, and go through the issue. I mean, I enjoyed this issue. I think it like introduces a character that we'll have for a couple issues here with Amanda. As Morbius takes a slightly different wandering direction across some of these books. He looks scarier as a vampire in here. And I'm interested to see if any people in politics are going to take up that no chicanery with mannery slogan, if that's going to be the next hope and change thing.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
You got to have the right name for that for a politician. Although you remind me of something. My sister is also a teacher, as I am, and they're having class elections, and she shared a poster one of the kids made, and the poster said, "Please vote for me. I already told my mom I won." I just thought to myself, all right, honest politician, but a dishonest child, dishonest progeny, right?
He or she will be president one day,
right?
So.
Yeah. Let's see. McGregor continues writing in the second person. Again, that grates on me. This issue I found to be a little hokey. I almost feel like it being set in Maine was just because the writer or the artist had just visited there and wanted to draw some stuff in Maine or something. I don't know. I, again, thought it could be a little hokey. I appreciate the black and white art setting up the creepy vibe, and I get what you're saying. It can be a little hard to see things, but maybe in a way that's why it works for me as being creepy, is because it is a little muddy. It is a little hard to tell what's going on, which for a spooky tale, that kind of works. All right, let's go to Vampire Tales number 5, Bloodtide. Rich Buckler returns on art with the aid of Ernie Chow. Morbius and Amanda Satan continue their attempts to run away from the Demon Fire cult. This time they try to hide in a movie theater, but Bloodtide tracks them down. This leads to a showdown at the local lighthouse where Bloodtide dies just after brutally murdering one of his followers. All right, Stojr.
We're keeping that lighthouse, so we don't have to draw other structures again. So we're going to keep that around. That's interesting. The relationship between Amanda and Morbius, kind of is a little bit different. It's as they there's not like this love triangle or love, it's not romantic at all. But still has that weird sensibilities back then of like just the way that they talk to each other. They're definitely leaning into the more mature nature of this book too. I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit before with, the potential nudity, or at least pretending that somebody is. But on the last page, this guy's brains get blown out, and brains splatter everywhere. So that's kind of cool for a book back then.
Yeah.
To show some of that stuff. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm tempted to zoom in on the panel of the brains getting blown out, but I might need to put an explicit tag on this if I draw too much attention to that. Anyway, I'm trying to keep these summaries brief, and that cuts out some of the plot twists in this issue, so it is kind of worth reading to get a little bit more than what we're saying here. This time, I like the narrative device that McGregor used to have each page dedicated to the thoughts and perspective of a different character, but still advancing the narrative. I thought that was kind of well done. It can be hard to pull off, and I think he does it fairly well in this one. But as for the story itself, it's fine. It's not anything amazing or earth-shattering. All right. Let's go to Vampire Tales number 6. This issue has a really cool picture of Morbius confronting Lilith, the daughter of Dracula, in the magazine's table of contents. Now, I don't know about you, Stojr, but I appreciate the brevity of this story, and yet the unspoken symbolism is so deep that I'm not sure I could express it in a mere summary. The artwork has a remarkable simplicity and a Spartan line work, with clean inking that in no way obscures the pencils. In short, I think this one was a masterclass in conciseness.
I mean, they really say more with less in this issue. I think we're going to have an offshoot podcast dedicated to this issue, so we really give it the time it deserves.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, we're an hour and 22 minutes into doing this one. I don't think we can give this issue the time it deserves. You are right, this is a masterclass in the less is more philosophy of storytelling, so I'm going to skip right over it and go to the next issue. Do you think we need to explain the bit?
I mean, I guess if people aren't picking it up, he's only in the table of contents.
Yeah.
That's it. He's not even in this book. So they show the table of contents and move on quickly.
All right. Let's see. Vampire Tales number 7. Where is Gallows Bend, and what the hell am I doing there? Which I'm starting to ask myself that too in this book. All right, Tom Sutton takes over on the art. Morbius and Amanda wake up in Gallows, Nevada, with no explanation of how they got there from Maine. Maybe that was in that missing issue. I don't know. The Demon Fire cult is still chasing them, and Amanda is still looking for her father, whom she sees get hung by the cult members. All right, Stojr, your thoughts?
I mean, they're trying to insert the formula from before of, tempt him with a cure, overcome by the hunger. Oh, wait, there's no real cure, or it doesn't work, or it's lost. Repeat. So not much to say about this issue other than, some of the panels and art is kind of cool looking. I think we have this is the issue with the flaming horse, right? The skeleton horse on 318 of the epic. Of the father being hung. I mean, so there's some panels here that are pretty neat. I'm looking at the Morbius kind of being choked by barbed wire from the guy that looks like death on a horse, a skeleton horse that's aflame. It made me think like Ghost Rider was there. So But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's not much to say about these things. I feel like they're a bit throwaway, and I just kind of go past them very quickly. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought this one dragged a bit. The art is still good. I like the skeletal horse the demon used, but yeah, this one just kind of dragged a bit. I got to be careful with my comic app and how we're streaming here because we're starting to lag a little bit. I think we're back, but yeah, if we start cutting out a little bit, guys, it's because of my changing pages like this. All right, let's go to Vampire Tales number 8, High Midnight. Mike Vosberg and Frank Chiaramonte share the art credit. Morbius has a final confrontation with Demon Fire, and I can't remember a damn bit of the rest of this.
Yeah, I mean, much like my critiques and commentary of the last issue, as well as their first page of this issue, which is a copy paste of the last page of the previous issue.
Yeah.
I have the same exact comments, so I'm going to copy paste my critique of this issue. It just kind of feels like more of the same. There's some pages of interesting art, but why wouldn't they have? Like, did you really need that recap page that's the same exact thing from the previous page? I mean, page 331 is a good starting page to kick things off. I don't know, but this
Yep.
just it's kind of more of the same.
Yeah.
You?
This was nearly unreadable for me. I couldn't really follow what was happening. That might partly be because I had taken several days off to read the X-Men before reading this issue, because we started the reading club, or we didn't, Curtis did, but we started joining it. But that shouldn't be a problem in the 70s, right? This is a time where they're still giving you enough recaps to keep you caught up and so forth, and yet I couldn't follow this one. I was done by this point.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you don't want to mess with the app in case it starts lagging, but on the last page there's a Finnish logo with a bat symbol, sneaking one past DC, to see if they're gonna sue over Batman, but otherwise, yeah, just good to move on to the next one.
Yep, let's see if we can wrap these up before we get slowed down anymore. Okay, Adventure into Fear number 25, and What of a Vampire's Blood? Plot by Steve Gerber, script by Doug Mensch, art by Frank Robbins, and inking by Frank Giacoa. We return to the more cosmic story of the battle between Damon and the Caretakers. Morbius and the small child Tara fight off some goons sent by Damon, but then a hypnotized Martine captures Tara and plans to murder her. The mysterious Tara gets out of it, only to be killed by what I would assume is an exploding gasoline eruption after a wall collapse, and this is clearly one of the more bizarre deaths I've seen. Stojer, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we really milk those recap pages to fill up as much space as we can, where we retelling everything that we possibly can here. I mean, the art is just kind of there. It's not my cup of tea. It looks a little silly, but I think that's on purpose because like they're wearing masks, right? So,
Yeah.
like I kind of give some of it a pass with with the way that some of it looks, because like they're literally wearing a mask. But you get jetpacks. Jetpacks are cool, right?
Sure.
So. I guess that's it. Like my synopsis of this is jetpacks are cool. This is not my favorite issue, but we are trying to like rapidly advance the plot, get him involved in some of these things that we've seen before. And again, like we're reading these things out of order in a sense, right? Because we take a divergence from issue 24, which was the the Blade issue. And we jumped through all of those Tales of the Vampire stuff because we're following the character.
Yeah.
But if you were only getting Adventure into Fear, you wouldn't see all that, and you'd be picking up right from the end of the last issue, which would have been just those caretakers kind of watching them things on the monitors and stuff like that. So it wouldn't feel as drastically changing as it does in this book. I know that they try and map these things chronologically, but I don't know. Like, there's nothing that's in those black and white issues that we just went through that contributes to this plot. So I almost feel like they didn't put them in the right order. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was at least a little bit in that first Vampire Tales issue, because there was a little bit that tied in there, but yeah, the rest of this really has not. The rest of the Vampire Tales stuff, they didn't necessarily have to be here, but I don't know when would be a good place to put it otherwise. Maybe there's something that's going to happen in the second volume that we haven't seen yet that necessitated when those were placed, but yeah, it does jar things a little bit. But honestly, this issue, I had no compelling reason to care what was happening here. Morbius facing Martine was interesting, and his inner struggle to satiate his bloodlust versus harming Martine, that was a great moment to include. I just wish it was in service to a better story, because this one, it's just bizarre, and it continues to be bizarre. But with Doug Mensch coming on, being the scripter, still following Steve Gerber's plot, maybe Doug Mensch is trying to just hasten us somewhere else so we can move on to something else. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's. We're nearly there. Let's go to. Let's see. Adventure into Fear number 26. Doug Mensch has full writing credits now. We get the final confrontation between the caretakers and Damon. Finally. Tara, the child, the child of the comet, returns, so she's not dead. And it turns out that she's been behind the whole thing. She's been manipulating both sides and feeding off the chaos. And that's because she is apparently a psychic vampire. And just like Morbius, she wishes to end her hunger, and Morbius obliges by feeding on her. Gross.
I mean, Psychic Vampire, I automatically go to What We Do in the Shadows. I don't know if you've watched that show.
No.
Yeah, you have to check that out. I think it was a movie and then a TV show, but there's a character on there that's a psychic vampire, and basically what he does is annoy people, and like they get all like upset, and he feeds off that energy of just annoying people. So whenever I hear psychic vampire, that's where my head goes. I think the page of her, going from little girl to Madonna with a whip to old lady and back is kind of a cool splash page. I appreciate us getting over all of the, getting through this story and getting to a conclusion. I just don't feel like it's as climactic as they maybe intended it to be. I also, again, I'm going to double down on maybe this would have read better if you had the black and white tales of the vampire after this. And went straight through the Adventure into Fear stuff as opposed to taking a break from it. Maybe that's why I feel the way I do.
Sure. It does feel like this is a desperate need to wrap up a storyline and to tie up loose ends. I actually hope that what this means is that Doug Mensch is going to take this book in a better direction. That's my hope. And part of that hope, I think, is realized by the next issue that we're going to get. But I agree with you with this splash page showing Tara aging and then being reborn as a child again. Maybe I'm just a sucker for art that shows movement in a single panel, but this one I think at least was quite neat. Mm-hmm. All right, let's get into our last issue of the volume. This is Giant Size Werewolf number 4, A Meeting of Blood, writing by Doug Mensch, art by Virgil Redondo. Morbius tracks down Martine in L.A., who has been wandering around aimlessly, but with a mysterious key to a post office box. After an encounter with the werewolf, they open the box and find the formula, which will supposedly reverse Morbius and get him back to normal. But the werewolf attacks them again, and the formula is lost.
So, I mean, we have the classic formula here, right? Of cure, hunger, cure lost. I do like the werewolf in here. I think it really looks like Vermin. Looks like Vermin, who probably wasn't around yet in the Spider-Man comics. I think he debuts in a Captain America comic before he's in Spectacular and in Kraven's Last Hunt and stuff like that. But drawn very similarly. He looks cool. I think he looks better than the werewolf, the man-wolf rather. So I enjoy this issue, even if I feel like it's just kind of repeating the formula.
Sure. In a way, though, I feel like after the Adventure into Fear tale, that cosmic sorcery versus science thing, and the the road trip of the Vampire Tales. Even though this is retreading older ground of trying to find the cure, it's almost a relief to me. I feel it's like, oh, this feels a little more normal for Morbius, or what Morbius ought to be about, rather than what we've been having. And I thought this issue, even though it's not an adventure into fear issue, it's an annual for Werewolf by Night. I thought it was a great way to tie up the loose ends for Morbius's book. Morbius finally seems to have more control over what he's doing, and the fact that this was also written by Doug Mensch, as I said, gives me hope for the future of what Morbius books might be going into the next volume.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, like, my critique of the formulaic nature of it, I'd still rate this kind of. I'd almost rate this above some of the Amazing Spider-Man issues that are in here, to be honest, right? So I think there's the other ones that I pointed out that were kind of really strong are my favorite issues, and then this one would be right behind those. So
yeah, this is a fairly good one, a great way to finally wrap it up. Let's talk about some of the bonus material. We get a ton of house ads for Vampire Tales in this one. We get an editorial explaining Morbius's origins, and of course your typical original art. There's also a number of new covers for collected editions of the Spider-Man stories. All in all, nothing too outstanding, but a lot of extra stuff and a good variety. Stojer, you had a thought on the extra stuff?
yeah, I mean, well, one, don't sleep on the Todd McFarlane art in there, but he did some of the Marvel Tale classic reprint covers. But the fact that we got some some Mike Wieringo, I think that's how you pronounce it. I mean, we lost him too soon. I mean, he was an amazing Spider-Man artist. He launched Sensational Spider-Man during the Clone Saga era. He, I think, teamed up with Mark Waid during Fantastic Four. This art for these covers that he did probably around the year 2000 or in the late 90s lean into a little bit more of his cartoony nature, but that gets tweaked a little bit as it goes forward. But great artists, died too soon. So those covers are pretty cool.
Yep. All right. Let's go ahead and take the comics off the screen there, and let's get into our wrapping up here. This is a tough book to read, I thought. The concept of Morbius is great. A man turned into a vampire due to a scientific experiment. His early adventures in Spider-Man and Marvel team up where he is a reluctant villain trying to find a cure, I think makes perfect sense. But when he gets his own book, it seems to go quickly off the rails. I think what I disliked about the adventure into fear issues is that Morbius has no agency. He is swept up by events, but he has no real ability to choose his fate. And while we've established that that is the case when it comes to his bloodlust, having the world around him take center stage just makes him a boring character. I like the concept of the caretakers versus Damon, of advanced scientific technology versus sorcery for the supremacy of the earth. It's a great idea, but it just didn't feel like a vampire book was the right avenue to explore that idea. Even though Morbius himself is a product of science and to create a being of myth, the story just didn't have a reasonable place for Morbius to be a part of it. It's like all of it's happening around him and he's just swept up. The stories from the Vampire Tales magazine, I think, set a better mood and a better tone. The art was inventive, and I personally don't mind the black and white happening there. But again, Morbius has no agency. This is the story of Amanda Saint. It is not the story of Michael Morbius. So, with all that, I'm going to give it a rating of 6.5. As I said before, there's a lot of promise here, but it hasn't been realized yet. And I think that promise has been fumbled by most of the writers. Stojer, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna rate it lower. I'm gonna go with a 4.5. This is, it's not completely unreadable. I wouldn't rate it like super low, but I mean, there's only a couple issues that are really intriguing. I do think that if I'm going to read black and white art and it's just a personal preference, this is going to be the type of book that I want to read it in. Moody, stylized, kind of this, gothic feel, but I really think like they missed something by not leaning into almost like a Jekyll and Hyde nature, or a, making him more scientific. Like once he's just a vampire on these like adventures, like I don't really get like what makes him unique from other vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And they had something there where they could have, almost made him not believing what's going on, and then kind of, being consumed by things. But like whenever he's consumed by the hunger, it doesn't feel much different than when he's just hanging out, right? You don't get that sort of that difference, and you actually get that in the Blade movies a bit, right? When you watch the Blade movies, he's taking a serum to kind of suppress the hunger that he has. And when he's not on that, you see that he goes animalistic, and there's a different nature to what he's got going on there. So I think they missed the opportunity there with at least this initial volume. And I haven't read Morbius over the years, other than when he guest stars in Spider-Man books, so I don't know where that goes. I also think this book suffers a little bit from it being a character-centric epic collection, which nothing against, but you have the idea here of, you're collecting every appearance mainly in chronological order, for those characters. And you don't get the idea of that consistency in writing, so you almost have to give it a pass. But then again, if I kind of analyze who's actually writing and who's drawing these things, you kind of want to take that pass away a little bit sometimes. So,
And there is
yeah,
some
I'm going to stick with a lower rating of a 4.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say there is some surprising consistency, at least with the art. I was surprised at how much Gil Kane comes up, particularly early on. That even though Morbius is showing up in different books, he was the main artist for a lot of those, until we get further into the Adventures into Fear and of course the Vampire Tales. Gil Kane's not in that. But okay, so between your 6.5, my 4.5, we're gonna give this a combined rating of 5.5. We're only just starting here, but clearly the lowest we've had so far. I don't know, in terms of worst epics I've read, I might still put Black Widow Volume 1 below this one. That one was just, for the exact same reasons you were saying, Stojr, is it was a character piece. She had all these little appearances in Avengers that didn't add up to a good whole. Volume 2 of Black Widow was better. It's still a little rough, but anyway, yeah, I think I might still put Black Widow below this one, but this one was a rough one.
Yeah. As you go into no prizes, I'm going to go off camera for 1 second here.
Okay, sure, no problem. I'll go ahead and take us through the no prize awards here. In the Mighty Marvel tradition, we're going to give out some no prize awards, which give us a chance to highlight some of the fun and weird things found within the volume, or highlight some of the things that the volume does best. So, without further ado, the Weebles Wobble Award is given to the fourth panel on page 8 of Marvel Team Up number 4 for not only making the weird decision of depicting Professor X at an odd angle, but for having the captions written sideways. I have never seen that before unless they did the whole page sideways. So that was weird. All right, the Failed Sensitivity Training Award goes to Morbius for his reaction to the people of Arcturus in Adventure into Fear number 23. I don't know how well you can see it on the screen there, but he's basically saying, no, this cannot be. You're all freaks. Well, Morbius, I was going to say needs to look into a mirror, but I guess vampires can't see themselves in the mirror, except that he's a living vampire, so maybe he can. All right, the award for most self-aware moment goes to Blade in Adventures into Fear number 24, when he acknowledges that an invasion of vampires from outer space sounds like the plot to a B movie, and boy do I wish that was a bad B movie. That sounds amazing. Let's see. Artist Rich Buckler is going to be given the award for Premium Purveyor of Panels for his innovative use of framing devices in the Tales of Vampire magazine. I really did enjoy this art and the inventiveness of it. And here's where I goofed up, and I've got my self-congratulatory picture there. The volume also receives the Best Page Spacer Award for the creepy yet awesome up-close picture of Morbius's face. Let's see if I can find one real quick. Oh, I'm failing. Oh no, this makes for a very bad podcast. Here we go. Particularly for the audio version, but here we go. The page spacer with Morbius just up close like that. That's an amazing one. I had to ask Curtis what exactly you'd call that page because it's not a fly page. I did a class on the history of the book, and so I know a lot about book terminology, but having spacer pages because of double page spreads is not something that had to be worried about in early manuscripts or printed books. Anyway, Stojr, you had an award you wanted to give.
Yeah, so Vampire Tales number 8 getting the award for making your page count on a deadline by completely reprinting the last page of the previous issue. We get a lot of recap pages throughout this book, but a straight up copy paste was a little ballsy. That was interesting.
Oh yeah, God, in the one in number 7, it's almost impossible to read the captions there, and they figured that out for when they did it in number 8 because they added little boxes to actually put the printing on. So they knew exactly what they were doing there. All right, one last thing. We were issued a challenge last night in the Epic Marvel Podcast Discord regarding the number of times we would say a certain phrase. Stojr, you asked how many times we can get away with it, and Curtis Finley said none. I bet you can't do it, and we failed right out of the gate. I think we got 3.
I mean, I'll stand by that was a legitimate use of It's Morbin time, but that's just me. So.
4 now. Now I almost feel obligated to say it myself because we've already lost the challenge anyway. So, all right, Stojr, that is it for our issue. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to chat about?
No, I think we went long, as we dissected something that needed to be, have a stake driven through it and buried in the ground here. It was very on point for Halloween to kind of go through this. Looking forward to future volumes as we get into some classic Marvel, Fantastic Four, Avengers, so on and so forth. I forget exactly what's on our list, but I think you have it.
Yeah, I've got it here, and maybe next October we can come back to Morbius Volume 2 if we can keep this up. Hopefully we can. I'm having fun. All right, so as for upcoming books, yes, we are taking part in Curtis Finley's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club. We're reading the Claremont run of the X-Men. As of right now, we're dropping a new one-shot video each day with our thoughts on the day's issue. Those videos drop at 3 p.m. Eastern. I was hoping to record some of those episodes after this, but we might be running out of time. We'll see. Let's see, in 2 weeks' time, we plan to live stream again at 8 a.m. Eastern on November 2nd, where we're going to read Fantastic Four Volume 5, The Name is Doom. 2 weeks after that, on November 16th, we are going to read Avengers West Coast Volume 1, How the West Was Won, and again, the plan is to live stream that at 8 a.m. Eastern. If you want to have a say on the volume going forward, see our poll. I will put a link in the description. As of right now, there's a link in the live chat at the very start of it, but after we wrap this up, I'll put a link in to the poll in there. And, we give these dates for when these are going to happen. Again, those are subject to change. Thanksgiving is coming up here in the United States. I don't know if I'm going to be hosting or visiting family, so that might affect our recording time because I don't want the in-laws to see how much of a nerd I am. My family already knows, but my in-laws don't. I've done well to keep that secret from them. All right, that, I believe, wraps it up. Stojr, where can people find you on the internet?
So we'll put a link to my link tree in the description, but, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, things like that. I have an affiliate code with Panelbound Comics. That I got set up a month or so ago. You can save $2 if you use code Stojr, or 5% off your order of 3 books or more with Stojr Ship. So we'll put those links in the episode description, but you can save a little bit of cash there. I did order a book from them recently. It was packaged well and decently priced. I kind of rate the different places like Cheap Graphic Novels, in-stock trades, and panel-bound books against each other, look for the best price, and then go to the secondary areas where I might risk packaging not being as ideal, like Target and Amazon and things like that. Go from there, as well as your local comic shop.
Yeah, I like that code. That's clever. Stojr Ship. It's very nice. Awesome. And let's see, you can find me on Blue Sky at drsmithhistory.com. You can email me, epic at drsmithhistory.com if you have any questions, comments, any suggestions about the show. Again, when we live stream these things, we'll have the chat up, but we know we record this at a weird time. Phil, we appreciate you being here. You're in the UK, so I guess it's a bit easier for you to show up. But yeah, this is the best time that works for us. All right, guys, let's see. Thank you for watching. Happy reading, and we will be back in 2 weeks with another episode, which hopefully is going to be just as epic. All right, we're out.